Hey guys, this topic has been on my mind for quite a while. Ever since I went back and I played some old school Dark Age of Camelot when this new Eden server released, I started to get these feelings and starting to think about this topic quite a bit. The classes versus the classless system and some of the positives and negatives that go along with this. And spoiler alert, I think it in the end is kind of more negatives than positives, unfortunately. Let's dig into it a little bit here. The first real negative that I was noticing when I was going back playing Dark Age of Camelot, which that was a positive, was that there's a little bit less replayability, right? Like you take a game like New World, that's going to be the #1 example of this truly classless system here, where just the weapons are the class, and that there's not nearly as much replayability, right? It takes like a couple hours to level up a new class, basically, possibly even less, depending on how efficient you are at doing the stuff, and then you compare that to a game like Dark Age of Camelot, where you have all these different races and classes for each one of these different realms, and each one of the realms has its own starting area and its whole story, and the classes all feel so different. Even you take like a Bone Dancer on the Midgard versus like an Albion's Necromancer, and even inside of there, they're so significantly different. Some of the skills are kind of similar, but the core of how the class plays is quite a bit different, right? You've got the Bone Dancer, it got this whole army of stuff, but you're very vulnerable as the caster. And then you've got like the Necromancer over on Albion, where you just have like the one main pet, but you basically get to turn into like a shade, and you can't even really be attacked, and you have to do everything through the pet, and they have to kill the pet before they can even attack you. So the very core of how they play, it feels very, very different. This very significant difference in the classes among the different factions and realms, it creates so much replayability, right? I leveled up my Bone Dancer, I got to the max level, and pretty much as soon as I was done with that, I was like, I really wanted to try some of these other classes out, right? I made a Reaver, I made a Friar, I made a Scald, and it's just a lot of replayability. And I think to New World, and like when you get to max level and you've got your gear and such, and maybe you're a little bit bored of just doing the same OPR maps against the same people, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of that replayability there, right? I have almost every single class or weapon at max already, except the ones that I have zero interest in at all. And it's just, if there was a class system, it would have got a lot more playtime and replayability out of that just through experiencing the game as these true different classes. The next big thing that I was noticing when I was going back and playing Dark Age of Camelot, as well as I dipped my toes back into some Black Desert Online, is the class fantasy and just just how do you explain it other than just feel, right? It's like it's a feeling. And there is not nearly as much of that in these games where all you do is you swap your weapon around, and that basically creates like your entire class. Now, there's some cool things there where you can make some pretty interesting, unique combinations. I'd say like something like Firestaff and Blunderbuss combination in New World is one of those more cool, unique things that you can do. But you don't have the same level of just this class identity and class fantasy feeling, especially when you compare it to something like BDO. This is one of the areas where, like love or hate BDO, and like I don't really like their gear progression system still, even with all the positives and stuff that they've done. Thank God that there's an equalized arena now. But it's just, there is so much more of that unique, awesome feeling. That's why you're going to see some footage for BDO on the screen here. It's just, they're so different and separate from each other and unique, and it's just a really cool feeling. And I don't really think it's even possible to do this in a classless system. Now, I'm curious. Hopefully, we're going to get some more footage from Throne and Liberty, right? It's supposed to be coming out fairly soon, and I haven't gotten enough footage of really like the class feeling and the different weapons and the different things they're going to bring. I don't think it's going to have that same level of class, just crazy class fantasy when you compare it to something like BDO. But even when you go to the less crazy flashy games, right? There's more of that class identity feeling in things like World of Warcraft, even Dark Age of Camelot, the old game. There's just this separation. I don't know how else to explain it other than a feeling and your class identity and class fantasy. Now, one of the big positives with there being a classless thing is that it's really easy to try everything out, right? It doesn't take a lot of investment, a lot of time to try things out, but in the end, I think that this ends up having an actual negative, like, net impact here, right? basically flavor of the month re-rolling into whatever the new, kind of popular thing is very, very easy. Too easy to where, like in New World, there's been all this outcry about everyone using Greatsword and such ever since it came out. Or let's say like after the Rapier gets nerfed and everyone just picks up a hatchet all of a sudden. And then you, like, you're like me and you're over here, you're a player who's been using the hatchet since beta, and now you're getting hate for using the hatchet, and now your hatchet has gotten not one nerf, but it's on the list to get freaking nerfed again because everyone started combining the hatchet with this other thing, which like wasn't even in the game before, right? Or it wasn't being used this way before as just like an escape tool. And now like you're sitting there like, great, like my class, the thing that I liked is probably gonna get gutted. Not because of any fault of that particular weapon. Like, though, it's been fine on its own, but now because of the one thing dying off and immediately it being easy for people to pick up and switch to the other thing, or the new weapon comes out and it's combined with it and it removes the negative of like the, the self-rend and that risk part because you can just swap off it after you get blown up on the Greatsword. And then now like your favorite thing, your favorite class that you've been playing forever is going to get another nerf and another nerf, until like, everyone who doesn't use your weapon or class is happy and you're not happy. So I say, like, in the end, this easy to switch and try everything, I think it ends up being a little bit more of a negative than a positive. I think with the MMOs, the little bit of commitment needed to try the things out and really want to be that class is probably actually a net positive in the end. Kind of expanding a bit off of this topic is there are other ways to kind of allow things to be sort of all in, like one character, right? If one character is your thing, Final Fantasy 14 does a good job of this, right? They have real classes still, but one character can switch and level up those other classes, right? But it does take more of the commitment, right? You got to level up that whole class and you're able to switch, and you also, right, it gets that combination of being able to do things on one character, so all your progressions kind of like all tied in there, right? And you are also like, you have the real class fantasy still and the class feel when you are on those classes or jobs. And then also, another game that kind of does this is Black Desert Online again. The way that they deal with kind of this, account progression and not wanting to have to redo everything all over on every new character is they have a family system, right? And like most of your really long, challenging, quests and such like this, they are account wide. Right? So like the Magnus quest, there's this Magnus line and it unlocks the ability for all your storage to be linked, and it opens up the first ever sort of kind of fast travel-y system for Black Desert Online. It's a very long, drawn out quest line, lots of puzzles and figuring things out, and you generally wouldn't want to have to redo this every time on every character. Well, luckily, again, they have the family system. You can see here every single one of my characters as Valron above the top. That's my family name, and all of my stuff is tied to this family system. And then it's only really specific stuff to that class and the gear, and then even some of the gear, right? You can share like all of the jewelry and the armor, or you can totally tag like one character to your main. It's really just the weapons for each class that you have to really do separate, right? So there is a lot of ability to share the things together while retaining that really special class fantasy and class feel that you get when you have separation and true classes. That's about it for this one, guys. Let me know in the comments below. Agree, disagree. Thank you very much to the patrons and the YouTube members. I really appreciate you guys. I'm sorry the content is a little bit slower right now. I did have to get a normal job again, and it's got me getting up at about 3 in the morning, so I'm kind of tired. I'm adjusting, and I'm figuring stuff out. I appreciate y'all. I'll catch you in the next one.